Good afternoon, everyone. Today we're doing our first video from 2022. So, Happy New Year, everyone. If you like the content, likes, comments, subscriptions, they always do help. We're finally in a midterm year, so I expect a lot of growth from the channel this year. And my goal is, of course, to accurately predict the results of the election. So, I'm also going to add in the gubernatorial maps, and I guarantee you, I'm going to have to refresh it. We're going to actually go over every single one of them, and I like that did that. So yeah, unfortunately, because we don't have an updated house map on YapMS, I don't think. Let me just do a quick check. House. Let's take a look. Refresh it. Here we go. Yeah. Okay. So, nope. Style. I guess I'm gonna have to go the old school one. Yep. I can tell because none of the districts have changed. So, okay. I have to use 270 for the House elections. And we'll go state by state based off of that. So, anyway, we're going to start with the Senate, which is pretty easy. I'm going to take the seats that I don't really expect to be competitive off the table first. I don't think Missouri is going to be competitive. South Carolina really won't be, but it's possible. I'm going to still keep Alaska in the likely category because things could get weird in their ranked choice voting. Because I don't expect any candidate to win on first choice and second choice. That's where things could get really, really weird after someone gets eliminated. Because the Republicans could very well be split, and I expect Democrats or one of the third parties to be the next two eliminated. They could give it to a different candidate. Probably going to be a Republican that wins, but if, say, the Libertarian Party runs a strong enough campaign there, they could get the Democrats supporting them, and then one of the Republicans might actually be next to lose votes, and there's going to be some split there. A lot of it could get really, really weird. So, I definitely do think that Alaska is going to remain in Republican hands. It's just which Republican, but it could also get really, really, really weird. Safe Democratic seats include California, Hawaii, Oregon, Washington. I don't really see it. That's how confident I am. Reasonably confident in Illinois. Enough to put it into the safe category. New York, yeah. Connecticut might be a little bit weird, but a lot of people have been saying I've been a little bit too bullish on Republicans in Connecticut. They may have something. They may be right on that one. Maryland, I don't see it being competitive. And Vermont, I especially don't see it being competitive. Even if Phil Scott had decided to run, he would only do so much. So flipping over to the other likely seat, and that's going to be Colorado. And pretty self-explanatory. Even in a year that should be favorable to the Republicans, I don't really see Colorado flipping. There's a few outside shots. If the Republicans are winning the generic ballot by about 10 to 15, yeah, they're winning Colorado. 7 or 8%, I think, would be the margin I would have the Republicans winning the generic ballot by in order to win Colorado at a minimum. And there's a reason why I say that. Because looking at the populations, you've got Illinois, New York, and California, at least in the Senate ballot, in the generic Senate ballot, California, New York, and Illinois are all very heavily Democratic states. You could throw Washington into that category too. And the most populated state here that is, Florida, but already that's good around that to, it's going to be 20, 26, 19, 52. That's a lot of population in just those three states. It's going to go very heavily for the Democrats. So, yeah, if Republicans are winning the Senate ballot by 7 or 8, I think Colorado is going to be in play, but I'm a little skeptical. I forgot Kentucky. That's going to be pretty safe, and Chuck Grassley is almost certain to win Iowa. I'm so used to having Iowa as a competitive seat. I should really change the style on this to make it easier for me to see. Metallic. There we go. That way it's actually easy for me to see which seats are competitive. I'm also really confident about Ohio for some reason. I think it's just recent history has made me think that's the way it's going to go. Even though it's an open seat, Tim Ryan can only do so much in a state that is very, very red these days. Moving down to states, I'm going to put that's pretty much all the leans and that's pretty much all the likelies into the leans category. I'm putting Florida in likely just because I'm that confident that Marco Rubio is going to win. In the leans category, I'm putting North Carolina into the leans Republican category. It's just not a very elastic state, and in a Republican favorable year, I don't see the Democrats picking it up, even though it is an open seat election. In New Hampshire, dramatic change. I had said that if Sununu had decided to run in New Hampshire, that Maggie Hassan, that she was done, basically, in the Senate. Sununu decided not to run, and as a result, I'm skeptical New Hampshire is going to put up a good... the New Hampshire GOP is going to put up a good challenger to Maggie Hassan, especially with Kelly Ayotte deciding not to run. Then we go down to Georgia, and I am still leaning it towards Herschel Walker. I'm actually a little bit more confident because Herschel Walker is kind of a good candidate for Georgia, weirdly. It's the way I see it. It's him being just a legend down there, but also he's able to fight back against a lot of the accusations of the GOP that it's really centered. I think the Republicans have done a pretty good job, and I think everybody is resigned to the fact that Herschel Walker is going to run up against Raphael Warnock in the general, so that we're already in general election season down in Georgia. And I think Herschel Walker, if he stays on message, which is a very similar message to what Tim Scott in South Carolina runs on, I think he has a very, very good shot to win that election. I'm not saying that he's going to dramatically improve in urban areas, the Atlanta metro area, basically. But I think he's going to improve among the types of voters who were turned off by Donald Trump last year, especially in a Republican favorable environment. Going up to Wisconsin, again, with the national environment being the way it is, it's hard to say this isn't a leans Republican seat. Things may change if Ron Johnson decides not to run for re-election, but I think he will. So that's kind of where it is. Again, things will change, in my opinion, if Ron Johnson decides not to run for re-election. It becomes a lot more feasible for the Democrats to flip that seat. Pennsylvania, I don't see Fetterman as that strong of a candidate, to be 100% honest. I know a lot of progressives like him because he's not a Republican, but also not a moderate in terms of economic policy. But he's definitely not the type of candidate a progressive would want, given that he's much more of the true blue-collar type of person, being the mayor of a coal country town, former mayor of a coal country town. And currently the lieutenant governor. That's not to say he can't win. He's much more capable of winning Pennsylvania than I would say a lot of Democrats would be. Connor Lamb may be the exception, but Connor Lamb is too suburban to do well in those, in Pennsylvania, basically. The rural T, as some will call it. And I don't think he's that inspiring. He's also way too moderate in a lot of regards. But that's kind of the story of statewide Pennsylvania politics. Local politics is a totally different ballgame. But statewide Pennsylvania politics, from what I've been able to discern, favors moderates and not super hardcore people on either side of the debate. So there's a strong argument that Connor Lamb would do better statewide than Fetterman would. There's also the argument the other way, that Fetterman would drive turnout among communities that like him. But he's also got some liabilities and skeletons in the closet that would make it easy for a Republican to attack him, especially in a favorable environment for the Republican Party. Specifically, the holding a black jogger at gunpoint situation, especially with that court case that happened down in Georgia. Yeah, nice. So there's that. But the other thing that's complicated the Pennsylvania race is the return of the moderate Republicans, in a lot of ways, kind of like outgoing Senator Pat Toomey, and who I personally thought was the best Republican to be able to challenge for this Senate seat, who decided instead to run for re-election. Pennsylvania 1st Representative, I believe his name's Fitzpatrick. And weirdly, that's Dr. Oz. And I guess I shouldn't be surprised about something like this, given that Donald Trump ran for president and that we have a pretty big star in Herschel Walker running for Senate. Shouldn't be surprised considering we had Al Franken in the Senate, who got his start on SNL, or Jesse Ventura, being a former governor from Minnesota. Trying to think of other actual celebrities who have run for office and had actual success. It's weird. It's almost as if people vote based off of names they recognize. Though Dr. Oz is not going to be able to run as Dr. Oz. He has to run under his the name on his driver's license or his birth certificate, which is Mehmet. That's going to be a hard sell in a Republican primary. I'm sorry, but it is. And that name is of Turkish origin. So, actually, because his parents were immigrants. But it's also kind of weird for him because I did not see him as a Republican, but he, from what I understand, actually kept his politics pretty quiet and pretty personal. So that, I think just because he was in the media and didn't talk politics, I kind of assumed he leaned more to the left. And he definitely fits the mold of a moderate Republican, though moderate on a lot more social issues and a little bit more to the left on a lot of social issues. He definitely isn't the stereotypical Republican when it comes to health issues, especially the pandemic, nor is he your typical Republican when it comes to guns. And I think that's going to scare off a lot of primary voters in Pennsylvania, and it may make it harder for Republicans to win. As crazy as this sounds, I actually think Dr. Oz is probably the best Republican in Pennsylvania in terms of if you just want to win. I actually legitimately believe he would be the Republican most likely to win a general election in Pennsylvania. Things I would not have expected myself to say 10 years ago include that statement. Then again, he may win based off the Republican primary based off of name recognition alone, because I can't even think of any other Republican that's in that race right now. So, yeah. Great. For right now, because I'm not doing any toss-ups, I'm tilting it towards the Republicans simply because of the environment. And like I said, I don't actually think that Fetterman or Connor Lamb are actually good candidates in a general election. And I also think that Dr. Oz is quite a good general election candidate, weirdly. And we move on to Arizona and Nevada, which both states are very, very competitive. And if we talk about Arizona, Mark Kelly is not doing a good job, I think, of trying to portray himself as a moderate Democrat, and definitely not as the type of Democrat who follows the legacy of John McCain, who, if I remember correctly, who was the inhabitant. No. God. It was McCain and Flake. I forget which one was replaced by... 2018, it was it McSally who lost to... Yeah, McSally lost to Sinema. And then I don't remember which seat it was, but McCain and Flake were kind of their own brand of politics, and they embody being their own people. And Sinema is doing that. She's not towing the Democratic Party line. She is being her own politician. And that kind of endears her to the people of Arizona, because they don't want their representatives and their senators being beholden to the party leadership. That's why McCain was able to win so handedly even in 2016 when Donald Trump barely carried Arizona. McCain won by, I think, over 10%. It was not a competitive election, unlike the presidential race there. Mark Kelly, on the other hand, really isn't doing that for himself. And I think that would leave him vulnerable if it weren't for the Arizona GOP self-immolating. There's not really a good candidate other than Doug Ducey, who represents the old version of the Arizona GOP, which was the party of McCain, the party of Bush, party of Romney, that sort of thing. Those types of Republicans, who are what most Arizona Republicans are. And Mark Kelly just is not doing what the Arizona Democrats are. He's not doing what would, I would think, be able to convince people. So it's basically going to boil down to, does the Arizona Republican Party put forward a good enough candidate who can say that, Mark Kelly, you voted with Chuck Schumer and the president on everything. You are not an independent. You are not a representative of Arizona. You are representing Chuck Schumer and President and Biden. You're not representing Arizona. And they would have to be able to tie that into Kyrsten Sinema and say, unlike your counterpart, who is doing her job and is representing Arizona. And then you have to follow that up by saying how you're going to do the same thing and be an independent thinker within your own party, be a party maverick. Or are they going to nominate somebody who's basically a mouthpiece for the vocal, loud crowd? Now again, the national environment does favor the Republican Party, but candidate still matters. Right now, I'm going to err on the side of the incumbent. Interestingly, in Nevada, we kind of have a little bit of an opposite situation. The only difference is the party that's kind of lost its head is the same party with the incumbent, and that's the Democrats with Catherine Cortez Masto, and she's kind of just a generic Democrat in a lot of ways. I can't really think of anything special that she's done. That said, the Republican Party does have interesting, decent candidates who have won statewide before, and it is a Republican-favorable year. But Nevada has proven to be almost as inelastic as the deepest of deep South states. So it may be very difficult for the Republicans to make a gain here. And for that reason, I'm also going to err on the side of the incumbent. You'll notice there's only one case where I didn't. And I'm going to switch this to this one. Governor's races, I'm going to be a little bit... little bit more reserved. Not go into as much depth. Don't really see that changing. I don't really see Iowa or Ohio changing. Don't see those two changing. Don't really see Alaska changing, but I'm going to still put it as likely because things can get really weird in a gubernatorial race. Also going to highlight the states that have already happened. Uh, Things can get really weird in a gubernatorial race with ranked choice voting, and that's kind of why I'm going to do the same thing with Maine. Maine is going to be really weird. Oregon, their governor, Governor Brown, if I remember correctly, she's actually unusually vulnerable. Newsom, he's not in any danger. Colorado, I don't really think Polis is in any real danger. I don't think Pritzker's in any real danger in Illinois. Don't really think Waltz is in any real danger in Minnesota. Don't think the Democrats are in danger of losing New York. And I don't see a Republican being able to truly flip Maryland. Even though there's a decent argument to be made that whoever the Republican candidate is probably going to make a very good run saying, listen, this person agreed with our state legislature to horribly gerrymander our congressional maps and remove representation from about 40% of our residents. Because Maryland should, out of 8 districts, Maryland should have at least 2 Republican districts. And there should be at least 1 competitive district. Maryland Dems are saying, no, we want to make it 8-0. Yeah. It's a problem. But I don't think that's going to happen. Georgia's going to be very, very interesting because Brian Kemp may not survive the primary. Texas, I don't see Abbott in too much danger. But it's definitely going to be more competitive than it was in 2018. Now we move on to the interesting states. In gubernatorial elections, the battleground is a lot wider. Florida, I don't see DeSantis in any real danger. He's also going to be helped by running on the same ticket as Marco Rubio. Kansas, I'm pretty sure that seat's going to flip. Arizona, I could actually see the Democrats winning this, but Republican environment, state that historically votes GOP, I'm going to tilt it towards the Republicans for now. Nevada, I'm going to err on the side of the incumbent. New Mexico, I believe their governor's term limited, and I think the Republicans could actually flip New Mexico, especially if they attack the Democrats for gerrymandering again. Though New Mexico's new congressional map is a little... I think it's a very bad map, if that makes any sense. Because it gives the Republicans the opportunity to win 2, and if it's that big of a wave year, they could even win all 3. If it really is a big wave year. But I don't think they will. But I'm going to err on the side of the incumbent party, though it's going to be a very interesting election. I'm going to disagree with my general rule of erring on the side of the incumbent in Wisconsin. I think Evers is in some serious danger, especially if the Republicans are able to field a good candidate. Michigan, Governor Whitmer, she is in some pretty severe danger too, because she locked down. She put in some pretty heavy restrictions and then proceeded to violate them herself at every turn. And I don't think that's going to endear itself to a lot of Michigan voters who may say, the Republicans were jerks, but at least they were following their own rules for the most part, and only gerrymandering the crap out of the state. Pennsylvania, this is one that could flip. and I think their governor's term limited. Going down to Georgia, I'm going to still err on the side of the incumbent, though Kemp is more in danger of losing the primary than the general election. Moving to New England, Maine is going to be very interesting, and I'm not going to make a prediction for that just yet. Though it's only the general election is ranked choice, and it's between everybody. Maine does have a slight Democratic lean, and there is an incumbent, so I think at the end of the day, I'll go ahead and make a call. I'll tilt it towards the incumbent. Moving to Massachusetts, where Charlie Baker has declined to run for another term. I'm only going to lean this towards the Democrats. After all, the Republicans are actually popular in governor's elections in New England. And it's not even just a Charlie Baker thing. It was a Mitt Romney thing before that. It was a Bill Weld thing before that. Republicans do pretty well in Massachusetts gubernatorial elections. And sometimes it can even go into other elections. For example, I want to say it was a 2009 special election where Scott Brown won. Connecticut, I think this one could flip. And Rhode Island is also going to be pretty competitive, though I'll keep it, reasonable, and I'll say it won't, but it could flip. Governor's election is going to be very competitive this year. Now, moving on to here. I don't disagree with Alabama. Now, I don't disagree entirely with Alaska, but ranked choice voting can be weird. Arizona. The issue is the new seats really favor the Republican Party. And if I go over to here, I'm going to just do a double check on some of these seats. And I think in a Republican favorable environment, this could be a really bad year for the Democrats in Arizona. And actually going to add a tilt. Yeah, Arizona's new maps definitely favor the Republican Party because the new map, the old map, it was perfectly reasonable that the Democrats held, what was it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 out of 9 districts. Here, most years, they're probably going to have 3 of 9 districts. Arkansas does not have its new maps yet. But this one says it does. That's because it's just waiting for the governor to actually, for it to go into effect. But it's all pretty safe. That's why I was really confused. California. This is going to be a tough one because I'm going to need to do some... Yeah, so the first, that's safe Republican. The 5th is pretty much safe Republican. The 20th is effectively safe is definitely safe Republican. 23rd, that's safe Republican. And the 48th is also safe Republican unless things get really weird. And just for the record, I'm not a big fan of this map. The 3rd, I'm going to keep it. I'm going to put it as likely GOP for right now. Second, safe Dem. 4th, safe Dem. This district here. What is it? San Francisco? Yeah, okay. This district near Sacramento, I don't really think it's going to be very competitive, so I'm going to actually mark that as safe. Safe, 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 safe. That's safe, that's safe, that's safe. 19th, that is safe, and that district is safe. Both of those districts are reasonably competitive. I could see them actually flipping, but I won't do that for now. Nope. Go back up. Move over. The 21st is ultra safe for the Dems. The 22nd, right now there is a Republican incumbent in that district, and it's not all that, at least based on partisan data. It's kind of Dem leaning. It's almost to where I would classify it as there's no way a Republican will win there, but it is entirely possible. The 24th, that is safe Dem. Then if we zoom in on LA, the 26th and 27th are both varying. 26th, that's not competitive at all. There we go. However, I'm going to, in the 27th, actually tilt it towards Mike Garcia. I think he'll be able to actually hold on, even though the district he's in does have a Dem partisan lean. And then what district is it? The 40th and the 45th. I'm actually going to, again, I'm going to err on the side of the incumbent there, even though one of them is barely Republican and the other is kind of barely Democratic leaning, and they're definitely true toss-ups. I feel that's the right way to do it. Everything else in here. There we go. Porter might be vulnerable in the 47th. In a Republican favorable year, it's entirely possible in my mind. Though we'll see how much that actually matters. In California, because it may be completely immune if the Democrats put a good show up in terms of turnout in California. In the 41st, it's a somewhat Republican-leaning seat. I'm going to go ahead and err on the side of the incumbent again. Then if I keep going down the coast, 49th, could become competitive again in a Republican favorable year. I'm going to tilt it towards him to start with. The 2 San Diego proper seats, 3 San Diego proper seats. going to leave those. And then zoom out to the 25th. 25th is definitely one that could be very weird because it's a surprisingly rural district. And it's a very heavily Hispanic district with a lot of those Hispanics being rural. And, well, we've seen historically, or at least recently, that rural Hispanics are voting more like rural Republicans. So this district could absolutely be competitive. Right now I'm going to tilt it towards the incumbent. And I think that's perfectly reasonable. We move over to Colorado. Where, I'll be honest, I'm going to put this as a tilt towards the Democrats, and I think 4-4 is not an unreasonable outcome, though it's absolutely possible that the Republicans may win it. Not win it, but win the 7th. Connecticut hasn't finished. Delaware, I think I've got it in the likely category. I think that's perfectly fair. Florida has not completed its process. And I'm trying to go through this as quick as possible. Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that's reasonable. Hawaii has not completed its process, but it's probably going to very soon. Idaho, pretty safe on both counts. Illinois, I stand by this, even though I think the 13th could absolutely, the Democrat could win the 13th. I'm going to stand by this for right now, though I should have probably put that in the tilt Republican category. If we go to Indiana, yeah, that's what I thought. Iowa. This one's a toss-up. I'm not going to do toss-ups. I'm going to actually give the Democrats a district there. Go to Kansas, which is not completed. Kentucky doesn't even have a proposed map. Louisiana doesn't even have a proposed map. Maine is finished, and I think I'm going to stand by this prediction. Go to Maryland, where, yeah, exactly, I really hope this map gets thrown out by Maryland Supreme Court, and that the Supreme Court actually draws one that isn't a partisan gerrymander. Massachusetts does indeed have a map. And, yeah. It's all safe Democratic. Michigan, their map finally has gone into effect. I'm going to zoom in on Detroit first. We've got the Macomb County District, which is the 10th. I think in a Republican favorable year, probably going to go to Republicans. The 9th should go GOP. Safe. 5th is probably safe. The 2nd, probably safe. In Detroit proper, we've got the 13th, 12th, and 6th. The 11th. That's not really competitive at all, so I don't see that changing. And then if we zoom out to the rest of the state. First, that's pretty obviously safe. And the rest of the districts are varying degrees of competitive. The fourth, I think that the Republicans are probably going to win this. I'm pretty confident about that too. The third, actually, the partisan lean of it flipped from being a Republican stronghold to Democrats having a slight advantage. But I'm going to err on the side of the incumbent there because it's not that much of an advantage either. It's 538 has it as D plus 3, and yeah. Michigan's 7th, that actually has 538 has it as an R plus 4 in a Republican environment. Even though there's a Dem incumbent, I think that it could probably flip. And the 8th district has the same thing, a Republican partisan lean, but a Dem incumbent. But it's not as heavy of a partisan lean. It's basically an even partisan lean according to 538. So it's really difficult for me to rate this one. In a Republican environment, I could absolutely see the Republicans winning that seat. But I'm going to be nice and err on the side of the incumbent. Minnesota, I think they're still waiting on court cases now. Mississippi, have they put in enough in order to get a map? No. I know they have proposed maps, but yeah. Missouri, they're still. I think the Republicans are going to try to make it a 7-1. Montana. I'm going to stand by this. Though the first absolutely can become competitive. Nebraska, I'm going to stand by that one as well. Nevada, well, I'm not doing. Going to err on the side of the incumbent in the 4th. The other 2 seats. In the 3rd, I'm actually going to say it'll flip. 2nd, in a Republican environment, because that's mostly suburbs and exurbs, and I think that can definitely flip. I think the 4th just has too much of Las Vegas in it. I think the Republicans could actually come out of Nevada with a majority of the delegation. Like I said, I think that the Democrats kind of hose themselves there. New Hampshire, I know they have proposed maps. New Jersey actually has maps. So, the 2nd, I think Jeff Van Drew is probably going to hold on. I'm actually confident about that. Also, that should be illegal. Throwing in that town, that is not a contiguous map. I think that should be illegal. And then if you actually look at the 6th, it's only barely contiguous. The 4th, that's pretty much, that is a safe district. Then, in terms of Dem safe districts, you have that district, that one, and then those. The rest are varying degrees of leans. The 3rd, I'm going to lean that to the Dems. That one. And I'm going to lean that one as well. That one, I'm pretty confident that the Democrats will hold on to that. The 7th, genuinely, I think in a Republican environment, that'll flip. But the 3rd and 5th could also flip at the end of the day. It's actually kind of shocking, though, that the Republicans kind of drew themselves a bad map in New Jersey a decade ago. Because even though it wound up giving them an advantage, it was not one that would last. New Mexico. Because I genuinely think that this is going to backfire on the Democrats. I'm going to tilt it in favor of the Democrats, the third, but I legitimately think it's going to backfire on them. I think the Democrats are kind of just lucky that it's going to backfire in a small state, not a large state. Yeah, I think that's reasonable for North Carolina. I'm going to stand by that. The only competitive district I really could see going to the Republicans. North Dakota and Ohio. Yeah, I'm going to stand by this one as well. Oklahoma, that's all safe. I'm almost certain I left it like that, yeah. Oregon. Because they're... Actually, that's an open seat. Republicans could actually flip that. And because it's an open seat in what should be a Republican favorable year, I'm going to go with this for now. But yeah, it's a bold call. I will admit that. Rhode Island, they've got a proposed map, but nothing. Pennsylvania, same thing. South Carolina, yep, just proposed maps. I know that. South Dakota. Tennessee, just proposed maps. I think it's only the Democrats that have proposed a map. I think the Republicans are going to try to draw out Nashville. We go to Texas. Lone Star State. And I think I agree with all of that, actually. Because there's not all that much that's competitive in Texas. And the Republicans really just made their incumbents incredibly safe. Go to Utah, that's a safe map across the board. Vermont, safe. Virginia, we actually have congressional districts here. And I know I didn't do a video on the news, but the districts are vaguely how I would have drawn them in a lot of the same ways. I think the first, I wouldn't have done it like that. I probably would have had the fifth go into this area. I think the first is a little bit sloppy, but the rest of it, yeah, I kind of find it hard to disagree with. I legitimately have a hard time disagreeing with this map. The 6th and the 9th I'm rating is safe, and I'm also effectively rating the 5th is safe for the GOP. The difficult one is going to be the 7th, and most of the 7th is a new constituency for Spanberger, so it's not quite the district that she used to run in. And as such, in a Republican favorable environment, I'm going to give it up. I'm going to give it to Spanberger, or not Spanberger, but right now I'm rating his tilt towards the GOP. These two districts are pretty safe in Nova, and I don't really see Wexton losing that district. I just don't see it. It's an area that's becoming more and more Democratic, and it only leaks into Republican territory. It's not a competitive area. The first is all but safe Republican, and I don't really see that changing. I don't really see that being that competitive. The fourth is safe, as is the third. And then we come over to the court kind of sacrificed a Democrat in Tidewater, Virginia. Even though it's absolutely possible for Luria to, Elaine Luria to continue winning the second, it has a lot less Dem territory. It doesn't have Williamsburg anymore. It doesn't have parts of Hampton Roads. It now extends into much more Republican territory out here. And Virginia Beach still leans Republican. Right. So the Republicans could very easily find themselves with a shocking, what is that? One, two, three, four, five, six. 6-5 map. It really is possible. Now, I will admit that most people wouldn't consider this contiguous, but from it's kind of almost required to do it like this because of the VRA. And then if we go to Washington, I know they're still in their process, even though the state legislature is going to get to vote in those districts. West Virginia, safe. I agree with that. Wisconsin, their Supreme Court is going to have to vote on that. So right now, if we go to the United States, we're sitting at 153 to 30. And there's still a ton of districts, 152 left to be drawn. So it's still anyone's ball game, though. South Carolina, Florida, Louisiana, Mississippi, Missouri, Kansas, Kentucky, those are absolutely going to favor the GOP. And in Pennsylvania and Wisconsin, GOP is going to get theirs, and it's really difficult to deny the GOP seats in those states with split control. But the Democrats aren't going to be completely lost in at least Pennsylvania. They're probably completely lost in Wisconsin. Minnesota, it's split control, and the Supreme Court's almost certainly going to draw a fair map. One that's probably going to leave an even split among seats. Washington, the Republicans aren't going to get locked out of that. Just looking at the final commission plan, the Republicans have a good chance at 4 seats at a minimum, with 6 not being completely impossible. New York, the Democrats are going to try to draw the Republicans out, so yeah. But that might actually go to the state Supreme Court, which will more than certainly draw a fair map. And looking at the commission's maps, it's actually surprising to me how close they are. I think the only difference is slight differences in where the lines were drawn. And by slight, I really do mean slight. So, yeah. Anyway, I hope y'all enjoyed. I'll see y'all next time. And sorry this maybe took a little bit longer. I tried to keep it short. So, take it easy. Have a nice time. See you next time. Bye-bye.